We are so honored to have teachers from around the world joining us each month in our webinar series. And I can't wait to see where people are joining us from right now. So we've got people in North Carolina, Vietnam, Japan, and people who would like to teach in the Americas, Japan, and Korea. And we have somebody in Mongolia at the moment wanting to move to Singapore. DC, all right, I see you, DC. Bogota, Colombia. Guyana, I see you, Delmay. It's great to see you. Glad you're here from Guyana representing QSI. Southeast Asia, Zanzibar. Wow, Maryland, all right. I'll be traveling out to Uganda later this year. Excited to visit Africa for the first time. Greetings, everybody. Bangkok. I think some of us are going to be in Bangkok coming up, right? All right. Ethiopia, excited to have you. Well, Dubai, somebody who would like to teach in Dubai, absolutely. And Fred from Liberia. Well, this is thrilling, and we are so grateful to everyone who has been able to join us. And as you're coming in the room, we invite you to type in the chat space where you are currently teaching and where you would like to teach. We're going to go ahead and get this webinar started. Welcome to Unlocking Teaching Opportunities at International Schools, a webinar dedicated entirely to success strategies for educators. And we are honored today to partner with the Association for the Advancement of International Education, as well as International School Services, to bring you an action-packed, resource-filled webinar to empower, equip, and enable you to be able to get the international teaching job that you so deserve. Well, I'm with Moreland University and have been for over 5 years now, and am honored to be part of an organization whose mission is teaching teachers around the world to be resourceful problem solvers and tech-savvy educators through an online, collaborative, activity-based learning system designed for tomorrow's students in a dynamic and diverse world. Today's agenda is that we're going to start with our panelists and partner introductions. Then we're going to have a three-part discussion. The first one being on qualifications for international educators. Then we're going to talk about showcasing experiences. And I don't just say experience, but experiences, because international educators have to bring in more than just work experience. They have to bring in a myriad of experiences to be able to discuss their qualifications. I'm going to give us a brief program spotlight of our professional development here at Moreland, and then we'll end with a concluding section around the actions that you can take to secure international education employment. With that being said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to invite first our friend Laura Light, who is from AAIE, to introduce herself. Then I'm going to ask for my two colleagues and dear friends, Danielle and Dana, to introduce themselves and introduce ISS. And then finally, Sonia, you can represent Moreland and talk about your experience and also sort of Moreland University. Laura, take it away.
Thank you. What a great opening. I'm honored to be here. I will also say kudos to Moreland University for the program that they have in place. There really is a teacher shortage, and I'll touch on that in a minute, out there. So the work that's being done through Moreland University and the support of the teachers, obviously the educators that you have here with you, is outstanding. The professional development piece is also a key component on keeping the teachers that are in the international sphere really up to date and progressing and ahead. The international school world is a little bit biased, and we really do have some outstanding teachers. They're logged in here with us. So I'm kind of preaching to the choir right now. They know that these schools are outstanding schools. And so the professional development, keeping ahead of it all, is really important. So kudos to Moreland University, and kudos to everybody here that's with us. So thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm Laura Light. I am the executive director of the Association for the Advancement of International Education. It's a nonprofit that was set up 66 years ago. We help support the schools around the world. Some of you who are already overseas might know some of our sister organizations. And when I talk about sister organizations, they are the regional professional development organizations, such as IRCOS and NISA and TRI and CISA. We are all here doing, in some ways, kind of what Moreland University is doing, but in a different way, supporting the professional educators overseas. And what AAIE does is our tagline is to help international educators lead with vision, wisdom, courage, and integrity. We support the global international school leaders, so the superintendents, the senior staff, the principals around the world. Now, before I was with AAIE, I've been with AAIE for 2 years now, and it's an honor to be here. We're affiliated with the State Department. We do events, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but I actually was with ISS, so I have a little bit of bias to the two sitting here with us. They're great people as well. I was director of global recruitment with ISS for 14 years, but before that, I was actually an educator overseas. So I taught for 2 years in Kuwait, 3 years in the Dominican Republic, 2 years in El Salvador, 7 years in Singapore, 1 year in London, 4 years at the UN school in Manhattan, as well as 3 years in Portland, Oregon. So anyways, yeah, I'm really 90 years old, but that's a whole nother conversation. I say that sarcastically, but I have had a life international school education, and I'm really proud of the background, and I loved speaking to you all about this work. So that's a little bit about me. AAIE again is here to support the seniors, the leaders of the schools around the world, and we offer a professional development weekly conversations. We do a once a year event. This coming year, we will be in New York City in February. But we really are here to support the schools around the world with the job that you do, and that is teach and educate the future leaders of tomorrow. So I'm honored to be here, Joseph. So back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And it was an honor to have met you briefly at the AAIE conference in Washington, D.C. earlier this year. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you at future conferences and joining you again in February in New York. I'd like to pass the baton over to ISS, to Danielle and Dana.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having us. I'm Danielle View, and I am the Associate Director for Teacher Recruitment with ISS. International School Services, similar to AAIE, is committed to supporting international schools. And one of the things we do, we have a lot of different services, but we have been in the recruitment service for a very long time, about 65 years, and known and trusted as a organization that wants to make a difference and wants to support having excellent teachers in excellent international schools. And really grateful to have this opportunity to speak here, because it's a bit of a secret to some people, these opportunities that exist. And these opportunities changed my life. I first started in international education as a teacher, and then went into leadership roles and have worked in 3 different countries. I cannot compare to Laura Light, but I'm very passionate about the experiences I've had, and we as an organization are very excited to help anyone that wants to, really understand what those opportunities are, and we can help you get to your next adventure. So thank you for having us.
And I guess I'm next. Hi, I'm Dana Speckerwatz. I'm with ISS as well. I'm our Director of Learning, Research, and Outreach here at ISS. Basically, my title sounds convoluted. I would call myself a curriculum addict and PD addict. I absolutely am in love with how those two things merge together and how we empower teachers to feel empowered to be able to make the changes they want to in their classroom, especially when it's aligned to pedagogy and instructional design. My PhD was in professional development, and I looked at professional development within international schools and what teachers want versus what school leaders want, and what are we doing, what do we want to do, and what helps open up pipelines and opportunities into leadership, so that more we can really provide, really start to look and represent the students we serve, which has been a problem over the years, forever within international schools. Equity is a huge part of what wakes me up every morning. Even as a kid, my dad always said, I would always say, well, what about my brother? Like, why doesn't he have to do this? And it has continued throughout my life. And I'm passionate about women in leadership as well. So anyway, that is a little bit about me. And I also worked overseas. Most of my career was spent, well, first I started in higher ed, and I taught in undergrad and graduate school. And then from there, I started working at ISB Bangkok, and then the American Embassy School in Delhi, then most recently Hong Kong International School. And now as my kids all went off to college, which I can't believe how old they are. I'm not, must have had them when I was 5, but they are now college students, and I wanted to be close to them as they navigated living in the US for the first time in their life.
And Dana, I just have to share with everyone that you and I met, and in our first day of knowing one another, traveled to the top of Universidad del Valle de Guatemala, on the top of the building, and stood together watching the sunset over the volcanoes in Guatemala City, and have decided we're going to be friends forever.
Yes.
After spent that evening together celebrating teachers in Guatemala. So it's great to have you. And I'm now going to pass the baton to Sonia, who is representing the fantastic faculty at Moreland University. Sonia, take it away.
Absolutely, Joey. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be here with the 3 of you as well, including Joey. We are, I know AAIE from going to conferences in the past. I used ISS many years ago, before the internet really was available. So I've been in international education for a long, long time. I started out in Turkey, Italy, Germany, going back to Turkey. I've been going back and forth between higher ed and the international school world. I really have to say not all international schools are the same, so that it really is, I want to really share with you that Moreland provides so much information. I'll push it to their mission statement, which we really, really abide by, teaching teachers around the world to be resourceful problem solvers, tech-savvy educators through an online collaborative activity-based learning system designed for tomorrow's students in a dynamic and diverse world. I saw this online and I had to work here. There was nothing going to get in the way. I reached out to everyone in the higher ed world to see what it was about. Had they heard about it? Did they know anyone? Could they give me any background information? And then I realized that there was someone I knew that was working here, Dr. Donna Golnick, who was just a star in the higher ed, teacher ed world, education preparation world. And so it's been such a great journey to see Moreland grow, expand, just the quality of instructors, the quality of candidates, and it's fun. I've taught all of the modules, several of the master's programs. If you're really interested in international ed, I cannot recommend the global ed masters high enough. It gives you the background knowledge and information. So instead of like doing what I did, where I went to different schools trying to find the right fit and the school that was best for me, you learn it deeply. You learn it and you were able to make that values alignment with the school that matches what your mission, vision, and goals are for your professional trajectory. It is amazing as well. I've worked in several education prep programs in the US, and why I love Moreland is because it has that global perspective. We're expecting 21st century educators, we're modeling it, and we make the lessons and the VCs so dynamic with the online tools that are used. What my students, which my candidates often say is, oh, it's so cool. I have educators around the world that are now my friends and colleagues. And it really is like a mini UN, the way that we work together and are able to really have an impact on education around the world in a very, it's been a very like quiet way. As I think Moreland also is another best kept secret in education. We're really walking the walk and incorporating all of the best practices. And because of the structure of it, we can pivot very easily to bring in many different best practices as they emerge. And so, yeah, I'm here to share as much as I can about my experience here, as well as I'm just honored to be here with all of you.
Well, thank you, Sonia, for that lovely introduction to yourself and to Moreland, as well as to all the other panelists. Let's dive in. We're here together today to talk about the important steps teachers can take to navigate the landscape of international school hiring. We want to provide a comprehensive understanding of the qualities, qualifications, and experiences that international schools prioritize when hiring educators. Let's dive in by talking about sort of the first question that is going to guide our conversation, which is what qualities and qualifications make educators stand out in international school hiring? Now, folks, don't have any need to get involved in this other than to have crafted the question, hit the mute button, and allow these fantastic individuals to converse and discuss this question. I will chime in as it becomes time to transition to our next question. But Laura, I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind just starting us off, and then the rest of you all, let's have this discussion. What are those qualities and qualifications?
And that's a really good question. And I'm going to back up here really quickly and just say, I've just spent the past 3 weeks with a bunch of leaders from all around the world, but in a variety of meetings. And one of their biggest concerns as we sat down over dinner or in meetings is the aspect of the teacher shortage that is going to be happening. It is out there, it is happening, and every head of school has that on their radar, has that as a concern. And so that is tough for them, maybe in some ways a good thing for you as you're moving forward, but you do, as Joey said, need to ensure that you have the qualifications, that what makes you stand out. And that's a really large umbrella to be standing under, because there's, you could talk about how to get the job, which path to go down and find out about all the jobs, and we'll get into that one. But the qualities that you need are ensuring that you show who you are as a person, show your beliefs and your values, but also show that you are flexible, that you're open-minded, that you can take on things that maybe you hadn't really seen. The aspect of being open-minded and flexible is really important. And I'm going to go back to my own experiences, taking a job or accepting a job and then at the last minute being thrown for a loop about something else that's coming your way. The schools that we work with are, and many of you know this, I know I'm in some ways, I look at who's on this call, the schools that we work with, and they're very forthright, they're very leaning forward, they're trying to do new things. So your qualifications should show that you are flexible, that you're open-minded. I will say, I'm going to go back to one of Sonia's comments, and that is tech savvy, because as we move forward, that's a really important piece. We all know that that's going about that one, but making sure that you have and again, I'm using Sonia's words, global perspective. You need to make sure that you show this as you're moving forward, but in your resume, you need to make sure, or in your online platform, you need to show all of the different things that you can do, but in a concise manner. You don't want to have a 17-page resume, but you want to make sure that people know who you are. Danielle, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, yes, that was a lot of information, but I think one of the things that I learned from working overseas and then recruiting for overseas is it's competitive, and schools want to make sure that you're a good fit. So the more honest you can be about who you are as a person, when you're applying for jobs, for teaching jobs in some other places that might not be as important, but the importance of Laura was talking about, the flexibility, the global mindedness, all of that's going to be really important, because what they want is not only to find an excellent teacher, but a teacher that's going to come in and fit in with the culture, fit in with the staff. And so they really want to know you. And the other qualities they're looking for is, how else can you contribute to the community? So are you going to be the person that might get out into the community and support those who do not have the same advantages that we have? Are you going to be somebody who coaches or tutors or gets involved in some other way in the school? very often in international schools, it's very important that the staff also does those things. So they're going to be looking for how you set yourself apart as a human, as a teacher, and the more specific examples and the more vulnerable you are to let people know who you are, the better chance you have of having an excellent fit and for them to say, wow, this is a person I want to bring onto my staff.
And I'm going to chime in there. John just asked a question, global minded, does experience an international student and alumni stand out as a quality? Oh, yes, it does. Dana, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of you, but I just want to say, we'll come back. Oh, I'll come back to that, but I wanted to answer that question. That's really important. Dana, over to you as I jump in.
Dana shared an incredibly powerful reflection just a couple seconds ago in the chat space that I hope, Dana, you'll speak to as well as you're answering this question for us.
Well, when I think about teaching overseas, I mean, to be totally transparent, I'm a single mom of 3 kids. I felt far more supported being an educator overseas than I ever felt in my home country. I was well respected. I had support for my children. And of course, as an educator and as a school leader, I had a lot of responsibilities after school. My kids had a community to go home to. I wasn't worried about, latchkey kids and things like that. And, if I couldn't make it on the soccer field, someone was taking pictures and understanding that I was hosting a meeting at the same time. My kids had tuition and housing. I could get back and forth to my family every summer. I had opportunities for professional growth. I received my 3rd master's and a PhD while working overseas. That's pretty incredible. And I've been able to work with some of the best consultants and minds in the world of education and meet them face to face, know them by name, and be able to rely on them, especially while I was working on my doctorate, and say, hey, I need help with this. Like, I don't understand this. Or can you put me in touch with someone who's doing research on this? And they would put me in touch with those people. And so I just feel like I've grown exponentially about who I am as an educator within my career, but then also how I see the world, and looking at so many different lenses of the way people come to the table and the way they view things. I feel like if I'm constantly thinking about all the people who are entering the profession of education, and I see so much backlash on educators, and it just doesn't seem right. And international schools is somewhat of a haven for our profession right now, and it's a way to feel empowered and to know that what you're doing is making a difference in a very, very huge, impactful way. And whether you're doing that within the school or the communities and host countries in which we serve, is just amazing. And you can really feel as if I wanted a job where I didn't wake up every day and feel like it didn't make a difference and no one cared if I showed up. International schools make me feel like it matters that I show up.
And I will say, I'll back up what Dana's saying. These international schools really are great places to work. Dana said it's a haven, I think is what you said. In actuality, I think it's a best kept secret. Again, a lot of the people already know this from logging in from overseas. We all know that these are great places to work. But going back to John's comment about, does my background count? I'm a 3rd culture kid as well, born and raised overseas, born in France, grew up in Germany and Europe. So that plays because they know you can handle living overseas. Do not hesitate to highlight that in your resume on who you are. Many of the schools have dealt with teachers who've come in and have not been able to handle the experience or life in that country. I can tell you one of my roommates in El Salvador never came back after Christmas, which throws the school for a loop. If you're already overseas, you already have proven you can do this job. You can go work. So again, going back to what Sonia was saying, find the schools that match your values. Find the schools that you want to be part of. But if you've already done it, kudos to you. And the other thing I'm going to say, and it goes back to kind of the question about, or how do you find the job? There are all kinds of ways of finding jobs, but the best way to find a job is who you know. And that is people who are already in the international school world have already moved on, but they're already at another school and they know other people. I cannot stress enough how important the network is. So please make sure that you keep that network strong and that you work that network. So sorry.
Well, I wanted to pass the baton to Sonia and to have maybe, Sonia, I want you to speak on your point, but also maybe you could speak to your experience with all of the teachers at Teach Now who never set foot in the United States, who are never planning to teach in the United States, but who actively pursue a US teaching license because they want to teach internationally as one of those qualifications and qualities that help with international teacher hiring.
Absolutely. I'm going to do it both ways. I'm going to go through and just share with you. I had no background in international schools. I heard Dr. Ernest Boyer speak at an event. I was a college student at the time, and he spoke about international education and how he had so much to learn from other countries. And I mean, instantly, boom, my life changed with hearing him speak and hearing about the direction of education, which has now come to fruition. I am first generation and come from a Mexican American background. When I tried to float this by my family, they said, people like us don't do this. So what I did is I quietly made a plan. At the time, you needed 3 years experience with ISS, and then you could apply for jobs. So if I can do it, anyone can do it. Be tenacious, be a risk taker, make your path on your own. Definitely, it is worth it. The international school world provides amazing opportunities professionally. You can, now it's even better than ever because you can pursue your qualifications, your certification, your master's, your doctorate, anything. You could get involved in professional communities at online in ways that you couldn't before. And so again, with the other end of it, yes, we have many that are in schools around the world at Moreland that have no background within working in the US or living in the US. And so this sometimes is a way for them to get those experiences to those American teaching techniques. I always say, one, what you've already talked about, your network. Reach out to those, put it in the Facebook groups, stay in touch with your colleagues in your cohort, and really try to get involved with the organizations in your community where you can come as a Moreland group to present or to get involved or to support each other. Also, we have many that are from the US and living already working in international schools, that they're doing this and they are deciding whether they want to stay abroad and continue to work abroad and try to reach different, there are different tiers of international schools. So they want to work at one of these really top quality international schools. And so they're getting that information, support, guidance through their work with Moreland. The other part that I wanted to also share is that I also work with the IB as professional development. I've been doing that for many, many years. I became an IB educator over 20 years ago with the women and teachers that started the PYP because it was originally created by teachers and they handed it over to the IB. There was a group of them that wanted to have a more continuous education throughout the elementary, middle, and high school, because at the time there was just a diploma. So what my advice is so they show that you can really have a huge impact on the world. They didn't start with wanting to have an impact on the world, but they have had an impact on the world, and that work has gone global. And I think that's also for those that live in different countries. If you get IB certified, you have a passport and training to be able to work around the world as well. And the level 1 certification courses are available for those who are not in IB schools. So that's just a little plug, and it is a way to get access and to learn that vocabulary, that IB language that would really help you in those interviews.
Well, and as you're considering a part of the response from various folks around participating and belonging to different organizations and different groups that can support you, know that groups like ISS exist because they want to help teachers get international jobs. Groups like AAIE exist to advance international education and to bring together best of the best in conferences and events and different opportunities for networking so that folks can get jobs and keep jobs and change lives in international education. And for our Moreland candidates, we partner with different organizations like ISS so that we can find ways to get you plugged in, not only through our direct partnerships, but also through the extensive network. Once you're a Moreland grad, you are always a Moreland grad. And we have folks who get together around the world and support one another in getting those jobs. So I would add that those organizational affiliations are an incredible piece of the puzzle that moves beyond qualifications. But Laura, I feel like you've got something to say.
I do, and I want to back you up to what you're saying is it's true. It is about networking. And so becoming part of with Moreland University, even the courses, if you're doing these online courses, some of your peers are going to be logging in from other parts of the world. They're going to have access to jobs or knowledge of positions that you can find out that's one way. So definitely, I highly recommend the courses. And then you said, Joey, you guys do reunions or bring people together. Now, on top of that, there's also regional events such as IRCOS and NISA. And if you're not part of those schools, go look at them. And so, when someone asks you, how do I network with the international schools? So the regional events would be another way of doing it. And then I think Dana had put on there too. There's a lot of social media sites these days. I know I'm part of 3 or 4 of them on Facebook to go see what's happening out there and see what jobs are out there. So there's a multitude of ways of going. I am a little biased, as you know, I was with ISS. I do think that going with an entity like ISS is really important because you create a profile. They see who you are. You do need to ask for letters of recommendation. I don't know if you're going down this path later on, Joey. So I'll say the other one, but let me go back to the original part. And that is the networking piece can be done on a wide variety of ways. One of them being with Moreland University, one of them being with regional events, and another one being social media. So keep those in mind.
Well, let's move beyond qualifications because we're already there, but I think it's important that we talk more about some of these steps that teachers can take to showcase experience, so professional experience, credentials, degrees, etc., as well as the experiences that we have living and working abroad. Dana, when you talked about third culture kids, I just got chills because I thought about how so many of our international school students fall into this. I think that was actually you, Laura, but I think, Dana, you also talked about it as well. Fall into this experience of having participated in so many different cultures that really their sense of belonging and their sense of security is a little bit shaken sometimes because they've moved around so much. So while that might be the experience of some of the folks here with us today who have moved and spent much of their life living around the world, I wonder also how that is an asset. So I want to ask us to talk a little bit about this second question. How can educators showcase experiences that set them apart in international school hiring? And Dana, would you like to jump off this conversation with us?
Sure. I think that, when we're thinking about teaching overseas, I mean, one of the things that's important to remember is our students might represent a certain passport, right? Or a certain nationality. It does not mean that they actually know that country or culture. They may not have ever lived there, but they might have like 7 under their belt that are incredibly rich experiences. And having those students talk about those experiences openly and say, what it was like to live in Vietnam, or what it was like to grow up in Dubai, or what it was like to live and be, to like, my son used to constantly talk about how he was the only redhead with freckles in some of the schools we lived in Asia, right? And so he was the first person, some people would see when we go to certain areas that had that coloring, right? And so like some of those experiences and some of those different things, kids who have lived through coups and through government takeovers and things like that, create such a rich environment within your school. And so being able to tap into some of those experiences, especially when you're interviewing, and to have some of those anecdotes of, like, I remember I was teaching World War II in Delhi, and I had students from 7 different countries that were all involved, including Russia, Germany, Japan, the UK, England, the US, and having them all talk about their different perspectives on World War II had such a richer conversation than anything I could have ever imagined if I had just been teaching, in Buffalo, New York, which is where I first started teaching, right? Because those experiences are totally different. And we ended up having, at the time we were using Skype, and we had this grandmother who had lived through Hiroshima come in and talk to us about that experience via Skype and talk to the students about what that was like. And so that was a very different and rich experience. And also, then I had my student from Germany who talked to me about, I don't want everyone to think that I'm Hitler. Like I'm very nervous about how we're approaching this and what this is going to look like and how I feel and possible bullying in the classroom. And so whenever I was interviewing, I would talk about the fact that how much I learned from my students, not that, yes, I think I was imparting knowledge and things like that to my students, right? But bringing in just that complexity of understanding how complex our student body is and how rich it is with experience and how important that is an important part to any sort of interview process.
And if I could jump in, I would say, for those of you who might not have had that experience yet, I think it's important to be able to articulate that you recognize that that is going to be a challenge and also a blessing to have students that come from different cultures with different backgrounds. And I also think it represents the same kind of diversity that makes a school rich with a student body, is similar to what international schools are really focused on now with diversity and equity. They're recognizing that their schools are stronger with the more diverse staff they have. So for those of you who are new into this, I think just being aware of what some of those aspects are, and also no matter where you are now or where you want to go, valuing what you're bringing in terms of your culture and your background that you're going to bring to that school.
So I'm going to jump in here really quickly and just say that, how do you showcase this? How do you get noticed? I think that's kind of one of the questions here. And that is showing that on your resume or showing that on your application. It's also making sure that I think John just said, he speaks all these languages. Make sure that you have that, because again, that shows that you understand the culture. But the other thing that I want to say, going back to the diversity and the work that you're doing to improve yourself, which is your own personal professional development, very much needs to be on your resume, on how you present yourself. Show what courses you've taken, show what you're working on if you are not yet overseas. If you are overseas, what you have done, what you continue to do, not just what you teach, but the personal learning that you are doing. What work are you doing to better yourself as an educator?
I'll jump in over in this. My experience had been not having any international experiences. So I tried to bring it to my classroom and tried to internationalize my curriculum. And this is in the 90s, so it wasn't so common. And so that was something I was doing to prepare myself already. It was my first job. So I started trying to see the world and see where I'd fit in the world. So my first paycheck went to going on my first overseas trip. Also, with that, just really being curious. Now it's a whole lot easier to find this information, to really explore in ways that you can become world wise, that you're already preparing yourself and highlighting it in ways that are really using technology to the that's available, whether it be your blogs, keeping a blog or keeping a website or a Canva PowerPoint with your information that's kind of highlighting some of the things you're doing related to this trajectory. It's about your personal agency. What I didn't know, it was my own personal agency leading me down this way. We want students to have voice, choice, and ownership, but how are we doing this in our own lives as educators? And definitely the e-portfolio is the way to go. We have this in our program. I've done a lot of research trying to pull it in and showing how you could really bring it alive. And why I'm so enamored by the e-portfolio is, as an international school administrator, this is how I made many big decisions. I was able to get to know the candidates that came to my desk in a way that allowed me to see who they were as people. what their values were, how they came alive, how what's important to them, how did they do their planning, what were some of their outside interests. It's such a powerful way to document your understanding within your certification program, your ongoing work as an educator, the professional development you select. I love it with the global and the master's programs, because you could have them do a reflection upon what they're learning at each stage in each of the classes. The ones that put their real intention into this and develop it, well, I know some have come on as Moreland faculty. I know some have gone on and have gone into leadership roles within international schools and schools around the world. I know some of them have gone on to doctoral programs, and I've been really blessed to meet many of our candidates as we've gone and presented at international conferences. And so take advantage of the faculty in this program. I have such a high touch here, and I continue to keep in touch with candidates that I've met 8 years ago compared to a traditional university that I really sometimes don't even have a face-to-face with them because it's all online. So again, I can't speak highly enough for making the most of your Moreland experience and really using that e-portfolio as a springboard for whatever your dreams and desires and lifelong goals are, both personal and professionally.
Well, and as we think about the ways, technically speaking, that you can ensure that, as one person put in the chat space, you're not wasting your time applying to then later find out that you needed a document that you don't have yet, or a qualification that you don't currently have, or even an international sort of permission, maybe a specific, as the person put it here, visa or national certification or organizational certification. It's critical that you go to the website and that you find out from beginning to end what are the requirements of that role, and that you have on a list, on a document somewhere, exactly what you need to have. And I'm going to say this because the research has shown that in particular, women, sometimes when they see a job description and don't have all of the qualifications, they won't apply. I'm not saying don't apply, right? You have to apply even if you don't have many of the qualifications, but you have to be able to at least discuss sort of if you're going to work toward those, if you're already working toward those, or other steps that you might take. We want to create an environment where all of us are feeling empowered to apply, even to the jobs that we may not be 100% qualified for, but then knowing in advance, if you've got to have a visa or a qualification or a certification, that you're taking the steps in advance to get ready to make that requirement a reality for you. Dana?
I was going to say, yeah, I agree. And I think that, you know, when we think about teaching overseas, I think, sorry, I started answering another question for Zoe because I was going to tell her, she was asking if she should be athletic, and I started typing, yes, every part of whatever makes you unique, you should showcase, because that's who you're going to be. You should be your own unique self. But so when I was typing that, I got lost on what I was going to say and I was raising my hand. What were we just talking about? Give me 1 second.
Well, we will go over to Danielle, and then
Okay,
you
go
can
ahead.
finish answering Zoe, and then we'll come back to you.
I appreciate that Dana forgot what she was talking about, because it gives me an opportunity, because I actually really wanted to say something after what you just said, Joey, because a lot of times we think we need to have everything to apply for a certain position. And for example, the first time that I applied to international schools as a teacher, a lot of people told me, oh, there's no way, you've never taught overseas before, you're not going to get a job there. It's so competitive. There's no way. Well, I sure did. I did it. And same thing happened to me when I went into administration. So I had been a principal in the US, and I had also taught overseas. And I was told several times, you know what, no one's going to hire you because you've never been an administrator overseas, and you have 2 kids and a husband that that are your dependents. And they said, you might as well not even try. And I thought, well, they don't know me. They don't know the things I can do. And so I went and I did it anyway and ended up getting a position. So I just think it's just like what you were saying is, you know, you have to market yourself the best way, know yourself. And then even if you don't have exactly the right qualifications or exactly the things you think someone's looking for, you never know.
Right. Dana and then Laura.
Yeah, and that is what I was going to talk about, is the fact that, you know, you have to also, though, sometimes you do have to be careful about the laws of the country, right? So for example, I was offered a huge, massive job in Singapore, but they would only, the laws of Singapore would only give me a dependent visa for one of my children. Who was I going to sell the other two to? Like, I was like, it was just like, that was a game changer. And I could have saved so much time if I had done my homework, and if they had done their homework. And like, I thought I was pretty open about the fact that I had 3 children, but it wasn't until the final interview when they said, wait, you have 3 kids? We can't get you in the country. And it's not that the school didn't want me, it was the requirements of the country. And so sometimes, depending on your nationality, depending on how many dependents you have, they may not actually be able to get you there. I don't want to discourage anyone from applying for a job. Just like Danielle said, there are multiple times where I've applied for jobs and it opened up doors and I wasn't certain if I was qualified, but you have to make sure there are certain requirements that you fit.
And that's actually what I was just going to say, is that do the research on the country. It's not the schools. And going back to what you said, Joey, about women wanting to, you know, be able to fill 9 out of the 10 pieces of the job if they apply. It's applying for the job is not the issue. Go for any job that's out there, but make sure that you qualify for the visa part of because the schools have their hands tied sometimes, most of the time, about bringing people in. So make sure that you understand what their qualifications are legally within because they can't change the laws of the country. But if you fit the legal part of it, apply for anything. And one of the things I've always said when I was with ISS, I always told people, just apply for positions that interest you, that you think you want to do. Open as many doors as you can, because you want to put yourself in the driver's seat. You want to be able to see what's out there. John also asked, like, when's the best time to, and there were 2 other questions on this one. When's the best time to apply? Well, the hiring season for international schools used to be January, well, it used to be February, then it was January and February, then it was December, January and February. And right now, again, I was with leaders last week, they're asking their teachers at the end of September to make the commitment for the following year. They are going to start hiring at the end of September for the following year. So now is the time that you want to start looking for your position for next year. Someone else, though, in the chat did also say, I'm still looking for a position. And my comment to you is, don't stop looking.
Exactly.
I see on social media almost on a daily basis of other jobs that have come around. And again, I'm going to go back to the conversations I had last week. The teacher shortage is real. The positions are there. I had one person walk in and say, I just found out I have 3 positions I have to fill. That was last week. They thought they were done. So the game's not over for the leaders. That means the ball playing is still there for you all. Keep going.
I
Sonia.
can attest to that because I got my job in Rome when it was end of August because of a maternity, and then a family member left, had to go home and couldn't stay in Italy. So again, don't give up, keep trying. And the one thing I wanted to say is, you might not find that first, you know, like where you want to be in that dream job on that first go. It might take a while. My first time, as you can see behind Danielle, she has those job fair information. I went to the job fair. The first job fair, there were 3 different schools that were recruiting me. Why the one I went to recruited me so heavily is because I went with some colleagues from my teacher credential program. And so we went together and we were hired as a team because we already had a community. It was a brand new school in Turkey. The other thing is that by my 4th international school position, just about every school that was there wanted to interview me, and several of them reached out months in advance to try to get me in place. So if you really take it serious and are professional and take advantage of as much as possible related to the opportunities to get the professional development, to go to these conferences, to gain the skills. Again, had a certificate in technology and ESL. I was just adding and adding and adding additional skill sets throughout the way. And they're going to want you.
We have had more comments in the chat than I think we have ever had in a webinar at Moreland University. And this audience today is on fire. They have so many good questions, so many insights to share through their own experiences and the questions that they're sharing. There is absolutely no way we're going to get to all of these. So Laura and Dana and Danielle, I know you all are busy, but I may have to get on the phone and say, when are we planning a part 2? Because people are so excited to hear your insights. And Sonia, as you have just shared, we have to be ready to pivot quickly and to showcase whatever experiences that we have throughout the year, to be able to get these jobs that are not just available from September to March, but any specific time of the year when a position becomes open. So thanks to all of you for these sort of important big ideas. I want to really in the last 6 minutes focus on some concrete next steps, because I want everyone leaving this webinar today to have some things that they can write down on a piece of paper that they can do to get the job that they want in an international school. So concrete actions, we're going to spend the last 6 minutes. We're not going to do, I was going to talk about some programs at Moreland to give people more information. We're not going to do that. We need to really dive into the practical tips and strategies that educators can begin implementing today to secure a teaching position at an international school. Everybody get your pens and papers or your keyboards ready. Laura, take it away.
I'll start with that one. So basically, first of all, you really want to set up a profile with an online entity. I love that Moreland has an e-profile. Kudos to you all, because I think that that's something that's going to be becoming more and more important. ISS, you set up a profile with them. There are other entities out there, but definitely set up a profile so that schools can find those confidential letters of recommendation. The next thing I would do is I would start doing some research. There's different ways of finding out about all of the schools out there. You know, back in the day when this international schools first started, there were about 300 schools, 400 schools. Right now, ISC research says there's about 12,000 schools. Now, let's be fair. There's going to be a lot of those schools in that 12,000 that you really don't want to teach at. So be particular about which way you want to go, but do your research on the schools, then go find their websites, because the first place they're going to post a job is on their website. It's the first place any of them go. And then you start reaching out in multiple ways. You reach out through their website, you reach out through ISS, you use your Moreland University e-profile, and you work it, and you just continue going it. And I don't want to discount the social media aspect. I think the social media piece is something for you to watch, because a lot of the schools and entities go on there as well. But create an online profile. Of course, I love ISS. Create an online profile with any of the entities. Find those schools that you want to work at. And then the last thing I'm going to say is network. Ask your friends who's where, who's there, who can you connect with, who can you send your resume on to. That's my advice, and I'll back off on that.
Dana, take it away.
I was going to say too that you also want to look at what schools are doing online and their social media presence, and whether or not they're connected to other schools, whether they seem like, are they doing it just for face value? Like, oh, everyone talked about Black Lives Matter, so now we're going to tweet something. But then you look at their website, and their website has nothing about DEIJ, right? And it doesn't look like they're bringing in consultants to work with their school. And it doesn't look like that. None of their, teacher leadership and school leadership and administrators represent that entity. So, okay, do you care, or are you just putting face value, right? So like looking to see whether their words actually match their actions, and digging into it, doing your homework on schools, and really looking at, are they doing the work? Are they actually always, are they only showing like, oh, this many kids went to an Ivy League this year? Well, guess what? You know what? Then that's probably not the strongest school. But like, they're going to pretend they are, but like, what are they doing for service learning? How are they engaging in the host country? What kind of an impact are they actually trying to make within the global community? And then you start to learn a lot more. And so those kinds of things, and kind of digging and doing your homework on schools, and then starting to figure out who are the ones that you're most interested in. There's, of the schools that I've worked at overseas, there were 2 amazing fits. And there was one where I just was like a square peg in a round hole. Like, it's still a phenomenal school, but like I was not the right person for that school. I just know I wasn't. And even though I made amazing friends and great students and great people, I tried to fit into a place that didn't fit me. So being your most authentic self and just being who you are, I think is really important, because you don't want to pretend that you're someone that you're not, which I may or may not have done at that point. And I do think, to go back with what Laura said, you know, the social media presence, I should not say this because I do work for a recruiting agency, but I don't have anything to do with recruitment, but I once got a job because of my social media presence. Like literally, so I was only looking for a job in one country. The head of school told me, I have no jobs, don't bother to come. I happened to live in Bangkok when the recruitment fair was happening. He said, don't come. Then sure enough, he had an opening. He said, can you come? I said, I have 6 children in my car that I'm taking to a soccer game. I can be there in about 2 hours, but I got to like do something with all these little kids in my car. And he's like, okay, great. And I said, but in the meantime, here's my social media presence. You can find me here. He ended up talking to my current head of school. Next thing I knew, he called me and he said, don't bother to drive down here. You got the job. I didn't meet him until I started months later. So like being real in many capacities and authentic can be really helpful.
And Danielle, I'm going to go to Danielle and then Sonia, because someone asked, how much is the membership with ISS? Danielle, as you're giving us some strategies, can you just tell folks exactly what they can do to become a part of ISS and take advantage of your fantastic resources?
Yeah, so a couple hints that I would give for next steps would be, Laura and Dana really talked a lot about researching and how important that is. The other thing I would do is practice. So the more that you apply for things and the more that you interview, the better at that you get. And the more you'll understand different aspects of schools, because as you interview, you learn about a lot of different aspects of living internationally and things of the different schools. The other thing you can do is come to a fair. And I did want to mention that the tables have turned with fairs. You know, because of COVID, we've been doing virtual. We've always done a bit of virtual, but I'll tell you, last year when we were in DC for our fair, candidates, we had a teaching couple who had 6 different offers. And just, I think heads have really told us that they love meeting candidates in person. So if you have the opportunity to do that, with ISS, you pay $75 and you get to recruit for the whole year with us. You can go to as many fairs as you want, including the virtual fairs where you can network and talk to hundreds of school leaders and have access to many, many jobs. And if you can, we have several in the States this year. We also have a fair in Bangkok. So those are great ways to do it if you can. If not, the virtual fairs are great. And I just wanted to also mention that throughout the year, ISS offers different sessions that support you in your pursuit of an international job. So we have sessions that we run about how to best present yourself in interviewing, how to make sure that your resume is the best it can be. So if you go to iss.edu, you can learn more about all the different things we do and become a member of EDU Recruit, which is what we call our recruiting platform. And we'd love to have you there.
Sonia, you get the last word.
Yeah, I attest to what Dana said. Upon invest in yourself, upon attending a conference, that's how I was able to have my 3rd international school experience. I was sitting by a principal that we were just talking, and we just bonded, and she invited me to come work at her school. Also, I have to say, with ISS, I had pivoted into working in higher ed in my first faculty position, and I missed the international school world. This announcement kept coming up about this job opportunity in Turkey. Everyone who knows me knows that I love Turkey, and so I ended up just asking, is it still available? Can you put out the word? And within 2 weeks, I switched my life. I had the job and moved to Turkey and left that faculty position. And so anyways, keep it active. Your commitment with ISS isn't one and done. It's a long time relationship. And even now, I was involved at the start of the Diversity Collaborative initiative. That was fabulous. And I want to get back into it. My plate's been a bit full, but definitely join those organizations, network, have fun with it, and really do what lights you up. And you're going to find your tribe when you do that. And that's what has been the biggest blessing within my international schools experience. I have 25 years worth of great friends that were, a lot of them were colleagues that are now like family to me. And so I just cannot urge you to go on this adventure more seriously. Thank you, Joey.
You're welcome. Well, I have to just say thank you, because we always have Dr. Suzanne Thompson in the webinars with us, even when she's not on a panel. And Suzanne, we're going to have to get you on a panel at some point soon, because your experience as a superintendent, as a district leader, as the leader of this institution would be incredibly insightful in a conversation. So thank you for being with us. And thank you to Laura from AAIE, to Dana and Danielle from ISS, to Sonia from Moreland's faculty. I'm going to leave us with one thought, which is to be bold and to be brave. Don't ever think that you aren't powerful enough to get the job that you want, because you already have it. You just need to take the next indicated step to accept that position. Get on the phone with these schools. Email is not the only way you can reach out to people, even if you are a continent away. Stay up really late and call them in their morning. Do that international phone call to speak to the secretary, to speak to the department chair, and to introduce yourself. And if you can't get there in person, make sure that you're connecting live in some way, shape, or form, knowing that you have everything it takes. We are so grateful to all of the thousands of Moreland candidates and alums who are a part of our network, and to our partners around the world, including ISS and AAIE, such that we can serve our mission and our purpose to equip, enable, and empower teachers. Thank you for being here. Best of luck to everyone and getting the international job that you already have. And may you all have a wonderful rest of your day, night, or morning. Bye, everybody.